Hello everyone, I'm Megan Sullivan and welcome to this Game Explain review of the very first Fire Emblem, known as Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light. Fire Emblem has always been a bit of an elusive series in the West, with fans having to wait 15 years after the series premiere before they could experience it for themselves. And by the time Fire Emblem did reach Western shores, it wasn't even the original game. It was actually the 7th game in the series, Fire Emblem The Blazing Blade for the Game Boy Advance. For whatever reason, there was never an official Western translation of the very first game. Well, there was the 2009 Nintendo DS remake featuring things like new graphics and new characters, but unless it was imported, there was no easy way for Western fans to access the original 1990 8-bit version. Until now, when Nintendo finally decided to release this blast from the past digitally on Nintendo Switch in honor of the series' 30th anniversary, complete with its own original English translation and a special edition that includes things like an art book, an NES instruction manual, a fold-out world map, and a Nintendo Power retro collectible. Yes, it's literally been 30 years since developer, Intelligent Systems, and publisher Nintendo teamed up to release a strategy RPG for the Famicom, aka the Nintendo Entertainment System, starring a prince you may have heard of before, Marth, who must navigate a war-ravaged land in order to defeat a great evil. So, after all this fanfare, is the original Fire Emblem worth the wait? Well, first let's just get this out of the way. It's a 30-year-old game, and there are definitely times when it feels like it. The clunky controls and ugly blocky 8-bit units with their laughably bad character portraits makes the game feel dated, even when using the pixel-perfect option to sharpen the visuals. But I did find the MIDI music quite charming, and the simplistic but melodramatic story with its solid English translation to be pretty interesting. Since this is the first game in the series, it's rather basic compared to its descendants. Well-loved Fire Emblem staples like the weapons triangle system, unit pairing on the battlefield, and dating options are all absent. But I was pleasantly surprised I actually didn't miss these things too much, because the series' most important features, including clever grid-based battle maps and unique job classes like Pegasus Knight and the shape-shifting freelancer, are there right from the beginning, making the original Fire Emblem's 30-ish hour adventure a super tough but engaging experience. When I wasn't completely banging my head against the wall, I had fun moving Prince Marth and his merry band of followers around the battlefield where they could take turns dealing blows with hostile armies and angry dragons. The 8-bit battle maps may look simple, but I like how they're thoughtfully designed in order to ensure the player employs careful tactics throughout the game's 25 chapters. For example, unlike later Fire Emblem games, there's no central hub to rest and restock at. Instead, armories, item shops, convoys, and villages where you can recruit new characters are all found right on the field, and are placed in such a way that you have to think super carefully about how to access them without having to fight your way through a wall of enemies. There are also times when you have to race across the map and literally hold the fort, or several, to prevent enemy reinforcements from showing up. It's a major pain in the butt to deal with, but it also adds another interesting layer of strategy to the gameplay. On top of that, there are villages that need saving and hostages that need to be freed, which means time is also a factor. It's a lot of balls to juggle, but there's no doubt that having to multitask keeps things fresh and interesting. There's almost never a dull moment in Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light. There are, however, a lot of frustrating ones. Player be warned, this game is hard, like really hard. Like I might have spiked my controller and screamed into the void at one point hard. I know Fire Emblem fans like to say, man, if you ain't sweating bullets, you ain't playing Fire Emblem. But I think even longtime veterans of the series may find themselves chewing their nails down to nubs as they try to figure out how to survive some of the more difficult chapters in the game. I certainly did. Now, of course, part of that challenge simply comes down to which units you place on the battlefield and where. And man, it is not always easy figuring that part out, especially since enemy reinforcements, sometimes seemingly endless waves of them, appear in the middle of combat. More than once, I had to scramble my troops in order to deal with them, or reset an entire chapter just because I was taken unawares and my unsuspecting squadrons were quickly overwhelmed. Even the smallest mistakes are punishable by Fire Emblem's notorious system of permadeath, which cannot be turned off in this game. In fact, the entire difficulty curve is intimidating if you're used to playing modern Fire Emblem games on casual mode, which allows fallen units to be revived after a battle. Recognizing the difficulty level might scare newcomers and casuals off, Nintendo has mercifully included the handy-dandy rewind feature introduced in later Fire Emblem entries, which I appreciated because it really helps take the edge off of enemy encounters. And since there isn't really a limit to how many times you can use the rewind button, I fully admit I took generous advantage of it so I didn't have to constantly restart battle just to prevent losing a crucial party member. By the way, a lot of these battle maps can take an hour or more to clear, so thank goodness for the suspend option, which allows you to pause the game mid-battle and come back to it later. In short, the rewind feature and its fast-forward counterpart, which can double the speed of battle so you're not bored between turns, are great additions. They save me time, and I'm pretty sure they saved my sanity too. Well, almost. There was one thing that drove me bonkers, and that was resource management. I swear there are times when it's just downright sinister in this game. Take weapons durability, for instance. Powerful but fragile weapons break pretty frequently, which means several trips to your team's convoy or an armory in order to replace broken equipment. If you've played subsequent Fire Emblems and have experienced a weapons durability feature before, that probably doesn't sound so bad. But as I mentioned, your convoy isn't always conveniently located, making each journey an exercise in tedium, even when you use the fast forward button to speed things along. And since each battle unit only has a few inventory slots, there's only so many times you can baton pass a unit's reserve weapon to some poor sap whose sword snapped in half while cutting down an enemy. The worst part of inventory management, though, is the uncertainty of when you can replenish your stash. Although your little convoy tent is usually somewhere in the vicinity, weapon and item shops, plus arenas where you can stop and do some level grinding, a feature for which I was duly grateful, are not always on the battle map. Or if they are, they don't always carry specific items or specific arms that you need to defeat specific enemies. Those are usually stashed away in treasure chests or remote villages that without a warp spell or a lot of flying units can be really hard to access before an enemy thief does. I know this all ties into the element of strategy, but fighting your way across a particularly difficult map in order to get to a shop and then realizing it doesn't have what you're looking for is not a fun experience. Plus your convoy fills up pretty fast, forcing you to be extra conservative with your inventory in order to make sure you don't run out of necessities at a crucial moment. It's taxing to say the least. That being said, I still appreciated the rest of the strategic elements in the game, even when they pushed my little army to its limit. In fact, I can't tell you how happy and relieved I was when I managed to conquer a particularly demanding map. Like the time I bottlenecked an endless wave of regenerating enemies in a corridor so Prince Marth could go shopping at a rare item store run by Ciri's favorite Anna. That was cool. Or the time I barely army crawled my way to a win after getting clobbered by hard-hitting dragoons. Oof. Like I keep saying, this game is hard, but if you're conservative and patient and hit that rewind button, there's definitely a payoff. Just make sure to copy your save data and create frequent bookmarks in case you need to revisit a map to grab any missed essentials like promotional items that can upgrade a character's job class. What's the difference between save and bookmark? Well, the save option is how the game originally worked, letting you keep the progress you've made between chapters, whereas bookmarks are basically save states, which allow you to return to a point you previously bookmarked in case you want to fix any mistakes. Be careful though, accessing a bookmark completely replaces your save to the bookmark spot, and there's no way to get it back. Trust me, I learned that the hard way. In the end, despite its difficulty and advanced age, I like Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, and I think it was worth waiting to see Marth's simple yet theatrical origin story. It's not as mechanically deep or engaging as its younger siblings, but it's fun to see how one of my favorite RPG series got its start, and at just $6 on the Nintendo eShop, it's a nice little addition to any gaming collection, especially if you're a die-hard Fire Emblem fan. Just make sure to secure your copy before March 2021, because this game is available for a limited time only. For more on all things Fire Emblem, make sure to keep it locked to Game Explain. Thanks so much for watching, guys. See you later!